William Powell, 1735–1769, was an English actor. Early life: he was born in Hereford, and educated at Hereford Grammar School and at Christ's Hospital in London. Sir Robert Ladbroke, a distil and then president of Christ's Hospital, took him on as apprentice in his counting house. Powell, however, was interested in amateur theatricals. Ladbroke suppressed a club in Doctors' Commons of which Powell had become a member. For a while Powell remained in Ladbroke's office. Charles Holland, however, introduced him to David Garrick, who wanted to travel and sought a substitute actor. At Drury Lane, carefully coached by Garrick, Powell made his first appearance on stage at Drury Lane Theatre on 8 October 1763 as Philaster, in an adaptation of Beaumont and Fletcher's play, by George Coleman the Elder, supported also by James Lacey. Powell made a success. The ticket receipts were up to the best Garrick days. Garrick reappeared in the season of 1765–6, and took over from Powell a few characters. Powell added to his repertory. In 1767 Powell joined Thomas Harris, John Rutherford, and Coleman in purchasing John Rich's patents for Covent Garden Theatre. Powell was at this time bound for 3 years to Drury Lane under a penalty of £1,000, while his borrowed share of the purchase money was £15,000. Bristol. Powell became a favourite in Bristol, where, at the Jacob's Well Theatre, on 13 August 1764, he took his first benefit as King Lear, on the erection of the King Street Theatre, the foundation stone of which was laid on 30 November 1764. Powell became associated with two local men, Arthur and Clark. The lease of the theatre was for 7 years. On 30 May 1766 it opened with The Conscious Lovers, given gratis since the license had not yet been obtained, with Powell as young Bevel. The Citizen, Arthur Murphy, with James William Dodd was also given. A prologue, written by Garrick, was spoken by Powell. At Covent Garden, on the opening night Powell spoke, 14 September 1767, a rhymed prologue by William Whitehead, and on the 16th played Jaffier in Venice Preserved. Powell lived at this time in a house adjoining the theatre, and provided with a direct access. In the fierce quarrel which broke out during the season among the managers, leading to legal proceedings and a fierce polemic, Powell sided with George Coleman, whom he had brought into the association, against Harris and Rutherford. On the closing night of the season, the 26th of May 1769, he played Cyrus in John Hoole's play of the name, which was his last appearance in London. Death. On the 31st of May 1769 Powell made, as Jaffier, his last appearance on the stage, in Bristol at the King Street Theatre. The following day he caught cold. Playing cricket, his illness became severe, and King Street, in which, near the theatre, he lived, was barred by chains against carriages, by order of the magistrates. On Friday, at the request of his family and physician, the performances were suspended to avoid disturbing him, and on Monday 3 July, at 7 in the morning, he died. Richard III was given that evening, and Holland, then manager, had to apologize for the inability of the actors to play their parts. The audience voluntarily dispensed with the closing farce. Powell was buried on the following Thursday in Bristol Cathedral. Coleman, Holland, and Clark, with all the performers of the theatre, attending the funeral, which was conducted by the Dean. An anthem was sung by the choir. On 14 July the Roman Father was performed in Bristol for the benefit of Powell's family, most of the audience appearing in black. An address by Coleman was spoken by Holland, who did not long survive. A monument in the north aisle of the cathedral, erected by his widow, has an epitaph, also by Coleman. Family. Once out of his indentures, Powell married, in 1759, a Miss Branston. Powell's wife made a debut as Ophelia in Bristol in July 1766, but did not reach London. Widowed, she married again, in September 1771, John Abraham Fisher. Miss E. Powell appeared in Ireland, where she married H. P. Warren, an actor, and died as Mrs. Martindale in King Street, Covent Garden, in 1821. Another daughter married Mr. White, clerk of the House of Commons, and left daughters who were shareholders in Covent Garden Theatre.